Good morning, my name is Joelle George, and this is my pasta rocket experiment. So as you can see, I got all the supplies ready. Got noodle, lighter, peroxide, our mason jar without the this part of the lid, and our yeast. So we'll start by filling the jar 3/4 full with hydrogen peroxide. Next, we're going to get our lid ready, as well as our noodle. And then we're going to put about 1/4 of a teaspoon of yeast in here. So we'll get that ready. All right, so we got our yeast that we're getting ready to put in our jar. We're just gonna mix it around. Push down on our lid. Put our noodle on top. Just pulling down the corners here. All right, so definitely burning, maybe not quite as well as in the experiment. Maybe I didn't mix together. Oh, so yeah, there we go. Might not have mixed together the yeast and peroxide quite well enough. Okay. Essentially we're maybe not quite as well as we would have wanted, but we'll take a look and see what's going on here. Okay, so there are 3 different types of rocket engines: solid fuel, liquid fuel, and hybrid. The pasta rocket that we just made is a hybrid engine, so that means it uses solid fuel, which is the hydrocarbons from the pasta noodle, and a liquid oxidizer, which is our hydrogen peroxide yeast reaction. So most rockets use solid fuel engines, and they just burn and burn and they can't be stopped or controlled once they're ignited until the fuel has been completely used up. The engine that we made is a hybrid engine. The nice thing about that is it can be turned on and off, and the thrust, if we expanded our experiment, could be adjusted by controlling the amount of the liquid oxidizer, which is fed into the ignition chamber. And a fun fact is the same type of hybrid rocket engine was used in Spaceship One. That is pictured here. And then this is kind of a diagram of what happened here in our experiment. So we have our oxidizer tank. That's where we had our peroxide and yeast. we didn't really have a valve, but we did have our closed lid with the tiny hole in the top. Igniter, we didn't specifically have, we used the lighter for that. And then our fuel grain, of course, was the pasta noodle. All right, so looking more into the chemistry happening here. So we have our peroxide, two molecules of peroxide, H2O2 liquid, which is being broken down into 2 molecules of water, H2O, and O2 gas. So essentially this is, I'm going to have a picture down here. So our hydrogen peroxide being broken down into water and O2 gas. So the oxygen flow is generated by the yeast, which acts as a catalyst, and that breaks off the extra oxygen in hydrogen peroxide, turning it to water. So as we can see, we have our 2 oxygen here being broken down into 1 oxygen with 2 hydrogen each. That also generates a small amount of heat. It is an exothermic reaction. The yeast does contain catalase, which is what decomposes the hydrogen peroxide into water and gas. The very cool thing about that is this is happening in our bodies all the time, where hydrogen peroxide, which is a natural byproduct of metabolism, is converted so that way it doesn't oxidize or damage our living cells. So this is happening all the time. The yeast is just replicating that catalase, which is found in every organ, but especially the liver, which I thought was interesting. So not only is this a good example of a hybrid rocket engine, is also a really cool demonstration of how catalase breaks down hydrogen peroxide all the time in our body into water and O2 gas. We'll just take one final look at our pasta rocket here. It didn't quite burn down all the way. I did have to use rigatoni noodles instead of ziti, so that could be part of it. And once again, I think maybe I didn't mix everything all the way there. But overall, a success. Thank you for listening.